Lego typewriter, because Lego couldn't. Here is why. In 2021, they released this incredible set, which has 50 functions on the typewriter. However, my problem is it doesn't actually work, in the sense that you can't type a letter back to Lego. So that's why I'm going to build my own, because the Lego couldn't do it. And well, how hard can it be? However, before I even started, I already had a massive issue to solve. A typewriter works with type bars that strike the paper via an ink ribbon. Lego does have tiles with character prints on them, but they are not a raised surface. Therefore, going the original ink route will be straight up impossible. So I will have to try and reinvent the typewriter. This is going to be interesting. Though whatever I come up with will have to be with these tiles, because I don't believe there is another way to get the alphabet in Lego. My plan is to clip these round tiles onto a square plate, which will prevent them from rotating. And taking inspiration from the motion of a real typewriter, I came up with this contraption. You place a character tile in there, and then launch them onto a large white plate, which will be the sheet of paper for this Lego typewriter. Unfortunately, it didn't really work as I'd hoped. So I made a more sophisticated mechanism which gives the character tile an extra push at the last moment to secure it in place. But that didn't work either. Well, the concept of the mechanism worked, but I figured that too much of the energy was lost in the process of rotating the type bar. And besides that, how could I ever fit 26 of these contraptions next to each other? So it was quite evident to me that I would need to come up with a more serious design. But a more serious design, where does that start? I had no clue. So I simply began by building a frame to hold the 26 key levers, similar to how it's done on the official set. And I reckoned I would just go my own way from there. Honestly, from the moment that typewriter set was released, I always wondered, what if that thing could actually type? So I'm incredibly thrilled that I can finally try and make that a reality. Though I felt building my own from scratch would be easier than messing with Lego's masterpiece. Speaking of the set, I borrowed its keys to use on my machine. Yeah, let's call it borrowed. Then I made a simple prototype to show the idea I have in mind to hopefully make this whole thing work, which is the following. When you press a key, the key lever moves up at the rear. The beam above it is pushed up, and the connected pusher dispenses a character tile out of the gravity-fed magazine. When the key is released, a rubber band moves everything to its rest position. However, before I got too excited about this mechanism, there was a rather big issue to solve. Because, as you can see, the key levers sit too close to each other, meaning that the beam of the letter A also triggers the mechanism of the letter Q. Without giving it much thought, I figured I should place the keys further apart horizontally, so there's more room for the mechanisms. Sounds quite logical, right? Though I couldn't even get halfway into this operation, or I already decided to revert all changes, because of how ridiculously big the gaps got between the keys. And since I don't want to make this twice the size of a real typewriter and its Lego counterpart without good reason, I felt I should first try every option I have here. And sure enough, it would later turn out I did not need the extra space after all. But for now, since I was already messing with the keys, I grabbed my chance to link each of them to a rubber band, which by the way was a dreadful task. But thankfully I found this super useful loom hook. I believe it was like 2014 when those bands were a massive hype. Whatever. Once the keys were grouped back together and secured in place, I solved the spacing issue by moving the top row of keys slightly backwards and the bottom row forwards. Now it is time to hugely scale up the amount of dispensers. I knew any mechanism I made would require square character tiles to retain their orientation. Lego actually once made a pack of square 1x1 letters, but the only two sets they ever appeared in now both cost around 50 euros. I genuinely almost bought one of them just to do this project, which wouldn't have been a good decision, because you'd need several bundles if you want to write a sentence, let alone a full letter. These round tiles attached to a plate work just as well, and they were only €3 a pack. Every key now dispenses a letter of its kind. Next step is to see where that letter needs to go now. I initially thought to build a beam that pushed the letter to the side, where yet another mechanism would then press it onto the white plate. But just in time it dawned on me that I should try to keep things as simple as possible throughout this project. Meaning that if I can simplify or